Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel, Refuge Tea here with my Granny's Closet. How is everybody doing today? How has your week been going? How has it been going for you guys? I feel like since Monday, I haven't really vlogged at all. It's been a whirlwind since the kids got out of school on Monday, and we've been go, go, go. The holidays are extremely stressful. They're extremely busy. But I could not, for the life of me, vlog this week, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to skip my regular intro. This is not going to be a regular video. This is more of a dedication video. 3 years ago today, my grandmother passed away. So it's hard for me to get into that vlogging state of mind. You see it coming, you know it's coming, and then, you know, she passed away so close to Christmas. It's so difficult for us to even try and have like an upbeat attitude about celebrating Christmas. It was her favorite holiday, especially because the day after is her birthday as well. So if I'm red-faced, it's because I've been emotional all morning, and I've been trying not to be emotional during this video so that I can talk about my grandmother. So I wanted to get into a little bit about my granny today and let you guys know the kind of woman she was. Growing up, my grandmother would always babysit us because my mom was always working at least 3 to 4 jobs to try to make ends meet for me and my 2 other siblings. It was just the 4 of us at the time, before my mom had my baby sister. And it was just like, you know, we were always with my grandmother if we weren't in school. So I was always jumping around, you know, climbing on things. So she needed to find something to help me, because as you guys know, and everybody who's been a part of my channel, you guys know that I am ADHD. And this was something that my granny needed to establish in me early on, and to teach me something that would help me focus a little bit better. So my grandmother was just like, she was like, Mija, stop jumping around, no más brinca. Stop jumping. It was more of a way for my granny to help me focus. That's why she taught me to crochet. My ADHD was just out of control. So at 9 years old, she waited till I was at an age where I was a little bit more mature, where I can comprehend, because if you know anything about ADHD, we're a little bit immature for a long bit of our life. And even as an adult, you kind of joke in the serious aspects of, you know, in serious moments. So it's kind of difficult for us to have that maturity level for our age. So like, nobody believes I'm 42, but it's okay. We'll work from there. And my granny did. She really did work from there. She sat me down and she was just like, here. She gave me a plastic yellow hook, crochet hook with a pineapple on top. And I think she bought it for me specifically. And she gave me yellow yarn, sat me down, and was just like, Mija, we're going to do this today. So we sat on the carpet in her back room, and she made me chain. So I chain. So it was just really like easy for me to do it. But funny thing is, my granny always forgot that I was left-handed. There was never any cause to write anything down unless I was doing homework when I was with her. But even then, I would sometimes forget that I was left-handed and right-handed. So my grandmother taught me how to crochet right-handed. So I know how to crochet right and left-handed. And it was funny because I didn't stick with crochet for my entirety of, you know, that portion from where she taught me to where I started my business, which was when I had my first son. So about 15 years ago now. A little bit longer than that, 16 years from now, because when I found out I was pregnant, I got back into crochet and I started making him a blanket. So, and I found out I was pregnant at 3 months. Yeah. So we had fun, her teaching me. It was frustrating, like I said, because I would be like, Granny, look, I did it. And she would go, oh, that's so nice, but your stitches are too tight. She would undo it. I'd be like, no. Sometimes I would cry because she had me doing that over and over again every day for the longest time. I don't know. She said showing me how to hold my hook was like, hold it like you're writing a pencil. So I hold it. But because of the teacher that I had at the time, she was a not nice teacher and thought that, you know, kids that wrote left-handed were not of this world. So she would force me to write right-handed. So I naturally grabbed the hook with my right hand. And so my granny sat in front of me and she taught me how to chain that way. And then after that, she was like, okay, wrap your hook around it and then go in the little chain. So once my chains got loose enough and I got used to the tension, then she moved on to single crochet, double half, you know, all the fun stuff. And then while we sat there, she would tell me these stories about how she learned to crochet. And it was so much fun listening to her. She had so much knowledge and wisdom. But the one thing that I noticed when I got older and I really was into it with my business is that I started watching YouTube videos on tutorials, and then I realized that there was ways that you can learn different techniques and different patterns as opposed to just, you know, the one stitch wonders that I had been doing throughout the years. And so she would tell me these stories, and then when I got older, I paralleled everything to what I was learning. And I was like, hey, Granny, do you know what this is? And she was like, what the? And my grandmother, she was not a sweet old lady, okay? She had a mouth on her. She was like, what the is that? Yeah, so I didn't grow up with, you know, a gentle old woman as a granny. I grew up with a strong-willed, you know, iron-clad kind of granny. And and so when I would tell her all the stuff that I'd learned, and then I'd show her my my projects that I've been working on, she would be like, ay, fregada, you know, ay, you brat. For those of you don't know what that means, fregada means brat in Spanish. And she was like, are you turning out, boy, you sure are turning out better than your granny, aren't you? And that would make me feel so like proud, like I got the stamp of approval, you know what I mean? So she would sit and she would tell me about the different things that, or she would tell me how she would learn to crochet. And she started out with the chain, and that's how her mother taught her. The generation skipped my mom. My mom didn't learn. She couldn't figure it out. Now, granted, my mom is ADHD as well, but because it is hereditary, and strongly so if it's more of a woman, and we are strongly dominated by women in our entire family. Like, my grandmother has 8 children that she bore on her own, and then 4 more came into the picture when she married her longtime husband. And so my grandmother had an even amount of kids that she was raising, 6 boys and 6 girls. And you guys can only imagine when each and every single one of them got married. I think there was only 2 of them didn't have children, but my aunts and uncles, and they all had children. And I want to tell you guys, it was either like my cousin, there's a lot of us. There's like 52 of us. So my grandmother had 52 grandchildren, and only 2 of us can crochet. I'm not sure. I think my cousin Mikey learned, but he forgot. But my cousin Bernadette knows how to crochet, and I do as well. And I don't know if any of my other cousins picked it up along the way. But so my granny would tell me these stories about how she learned how to crochet. So she would chain, right? She would learn to chain, and she would walk from work to home, and she worked at a tortilla, like a tortilla factory with her mom. So it was her walking home was her time to practice. She would just walk home and chain, and she knew everybody on the street, and people were waving her down and be like, hey, Jesusita, or Jessie, you know, hey. But this day was different. She said everybody was trying to flag her down, and she just waved, not knowing that people were trying to get her attention. So the trolley came by one time, and they were like, Jessie, look behind you. And she turns around, and her chain got so long because she forgot to unravel it that it was down the street and around the corner. And so she was like, oh my gosh. So she was like, I thought I was doing so well and I was focusing so hard that I just forgot that I needed to unravel after 100 chains. So things like that my grandmother would tell me, and it was so much fun learning and hearing, you know, the different stories. When she got older, to support her family, she would crochet doilies. I do have some of those doilies here, but they're under my cameras right now as a decorative base. And but I do have some of my great-grandmother's doilies as well, which I am named after my great-grandmother. The reason why I call it my granny's closet, you guys, is because when I got older and I started crocheting again in my teens when I was in high school, because I had friends, I didn't have money, so I needed to find, you know, yarn for, and at this point, my grandmother had taken care of us so many times that it was our turn to take care of her. So she moved in with us, and we started taking care of her. And so she had a closet full of just boxes of yarn in my mom's house. And I was just like, when she goes to the restroom, I'm going to go in her closet, because she hadn't been crocheting in a while. Her arthritis had gotten so bad that she couldn't really grip the hook. I mean, she tried, and it was so funny because she would, whenever I'd come into her room, "Ay, mija, can you go in the closet and get me a skein of yarn and a hook?" And it was, my grandmother's hands would do this all the time. She couldn't really bend her fingers, so it was that bad. So it was really difficult to watch that, you know, love of her passion kind of fade. But I would sit there and I would listen to more stories and things like that, and war stories as well. Like, she told us the story one time where she would walk home from school, and they would have to go through this tunnel. She lived in East LA, growing up and going to school. She had to walk through this tunnel, and this tunnel, these girls that were mean to her, they would stand there and they would call her names and try to jump her. So my grandma was mean, guys. She was mean, okay? Back in the day, they didn't, you know, because this is like, okay, my grandma was born in 1934, okay? So there wasn't a law or policies in school against bringing weapons or nail files. Yes, weapons, but nail files, it was frowned upon, but it wasn't really a rule that you couldn't bring anything to school. So my grandmother would have her, and, you know, at that time, it was metal. It wasn't, you know, the emery boards, the cardboard emery boards that we have, but it was the metal emery board, the point and the little hook at the end. She would stick that in her hair. And one day she decided, you know what? These girls are gonna, I have a feeling, you know, you get those intuitions where, oh, you know, something's coming. So she grabbed these little pieces of metal that she found, and she glued and nailed them to the bottom of her shoes like tap shoes. So these girls came. Sure enough, she went through the tunnel. The girls tried to jump her, and she kicked them in the shins. But my granny didn't say shins. She said chins. So I kicked them in the chins. And those girls ran off. They knew not to mess with my granny. So that's what I say. I didn't have that sweet old, like when we go to grocery stores, you know, when we were younger, my granny lived in South El Monte. It's where I was born. And she had this giant adult tricycle with a basket in the back. I don't know if anybody has ever seen those, but she had one of those, and we would sit in the basket. She would ride us to the supermarket that was actually next door to the house that I was born in. And back in the day, like now, you have to drive down the mountain, go around the corner, go past, you know, the swirly whirly drops of gumballs, and just to get to the supermarket, because the houses that they build are so far away that you literally are driving like 15-20 minutes to get to a grocery store. But back then in the 80s, we would ride our bikes and walk everywhere because the supermarket was close by. It was maybe like a mile or two. And, you know, we would walk everywhere in El Monte. So we'd walk to Peck Road. And on the way there, we had family and homes that lived there, like my Uncle David. You know, we would walk by his house and say hi, you know, and he'd walk with us, you know, and it would just be a family thing. And so just stories like that or memories like that that I have, I really cherish and hold on to. Like I said, okay, like the grocery store, she wasn't like, oh, grab whatever you want, we're gonna buy it. No, this lady, she was like, I'm gonna budget. We're getting powdered milk and that's what you're having for breakfast in your cereal. Oh, you want that? Did you bring money? Oh, I guess you can't get it, huh? Tell me your grandma didn't act like that. If you had a granny like me, if you lived, you didn't realize you were poor, but you were poor. That's how it was, okay? When it came time for my grandmother, she couldn't really live on her own anymore. It was really difficult for her to try and be sustainable on her own. So she came lived with us. And that's when, you know, I started working on my business a lot more. And I would go into her closet while she went to the restroom and I would steal her yarn. She wouldn't know it. I should just name my business, I Steal My Granny's Closet Yarn. Well, one day I had my baby sister had my banner made and it said my granny's closet and it has my, you know, my little lady on there. That it wasn't this one that I drew. It was a different one. I drew this one. But the other one that I had, she had shorter hair, you know. So I showed it to my granny. And she got all emotional. I got emotional. Everybody was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, oh, my granny's closet. What do you mean? And so then I told her that she'd smack me. You stole my yarn. And it was just a lot of fun to, you know, joke around with her. But as time went on, her memory would start to fade. And she would just be like, she would be like, hear me, huh? Here's $3. Go buy yourself or me a skein of yarn. She was like, that should cover two. And she would be living in the past, you know, because back then skeins of yarn were like 50 cents and then she would give me $5. Go get yourself some gas, fill up your tank, you know. And it was like that for a lot of the last few years. But she would still tell the stories about how she learned to crochet, and she would sit there. And then when I would show her, the last thing I showed her before she had to be put into a nursing home because we just couldn't help her anymore. We weren't equipped to do it any longer. I was doing her physical therapy. I was giving her her medicine. I was feeding her because my mom couldn't do it anymore. So I took over the brunt of a lot of stuff during, you know, the morning to the middle of the day. And then when I'd leave, my sisters come home and they would take care of the rest. You know, I personally think that they had a little bit harder because the end of the day was, you know, shower time. She was a little bit more resistant to wanting to go to bed, and she would forget things. So I think it's called sundowning. But she didn't have Alzheimer's, but she had dementia. And it was more difficult for her. I mean, she would fight me with physical therapy. I've had so many injuries throughout my life because I was such a rough child that I went to therapy on a regular basis to heal some bone or another, or a ligament, and surgery in one knee. So I was pretty experienced in having to do physical therapy, but I would take her and my mom to the doctors and to their physical therapists, and they would give me a paper that I needed to follow. So I would have to help her with that. And then a nurse would come during the week sometimes, but you know, during the end, it was difficult to try and get her to do stuff. And she worked better with nurses and people who are more well trained and licensed to care for her. And we would do Zoom meetings with her, and that was when COVID hit. So it was hard to try and stay away. We couldn't go visit her because it was the complete shutdown. And then a week before Christmas, we got the call that she got COVID and was in the hospital. Now, my mom did everything but put a hazmat suit on to go with her because my mom was her primary, and she went down there and, you know, signed all the paperwork and things like that, stayed with my granny. But we were there Zoom meeting with her till the end. I don't know about you guys, but 3 years still seems like yesterday, and today is her anniversary. But like I said, it's difficult because not only is her heavenly birthday today, but her actual birthday is next Tuesday, the day after Christmas. So we normally go visit her site at the cemetery on the day that she has passed, but it is raining really bad all day today, and the weather is not allowing for us to travel right now because for me it's a 2-hour drive, but for my family it's about 45-minute drive from where they live. So we're going to postpone it until next week, and we're going to see what day we can go and visit her. But I felt like I needed to do something for my grandma today and share a little bit of my grandma with you guys. I'll always have my memories. Like, she loved I Love Lucy. That's where I get it from, and a lot of the pictures that I have around my craft room. She was always so proud of me taking my business as far as I was able to, and I know that she's still proud now. I wear this flannel because this belonged to my granny. I always wear it whenever I miss her, which is a lot, so it's always handy and ready on my, my bedside. Today, I wanted to get this video out and share a little bit about my grandmother and her history and how she learned and how she taught me, and share my memories with you guys. But thank you for joining me today. I will leave you with a little bit of visual of my granny. You guys have a blessed rest of your Friday, a blessed rest of your weekend. Merry Christmas. Love and cherish your loved ones. You guys have a blessed, blessed day. Bye. you.